All right. Looks like we're on. Come on, people. Failed to find video. What? I play those games. Come on. You can do it. Oops, failed to find video URL. How odd.
They're
Yeah. Oh, that's one of my little live broadcasts.
This is test number 11.
I was doing some live broadcasts from my studio downstairs over Google Plus.
Over Google Plus Hangout. Still trying to get that dialed in.
Still trying to get the bugs worked out. Come on.
Record at the same time.
Work.
Hopefully it works.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Hi there, and welcome to the Tolkien Society. I'm Hawk Robinson, the founder. We've got Chris Tripperstein. Brian will be joining us. I'm pretty sure he's coming.
he's on his way.
Yep, there he is. Enter!
And
Speak of him, and he will be summoned.
we have entered. Yeah, you will be summoned. And
Welcome, Richard. Welcome, Brian. Here you are now on the air.
Hello, all over the world. Hello.
All over the world.
Huzzah! Magic powers.
And Jeremiah is in the chat room as well.
Hey,
Welcome, Jeremiah. From
Hey, Jeremiah.
UK, right? That's where Jeremiah is.
Hail
And I'm
Warrington.
hearing all the people in the chat rooms.
Warrington, Lancashire. Except that it's technically Warrington, Cheshire. It used to be in Lancashire, but they 1974 they changed the boundary.
Mm.
It'd be like somebody saying Spokane is really part of Idaho now.
Yes.
That would be a very different environment.
Before,
Completely different.
the Oregon
taxes.
Territory included Idaho.
Yeah.
Before it
Yeah.
split off.
Yeah.
So technically, Idaho is part of Spokane.
Anywho.
You're right. It's our province.
So, Maya Govan,
Hail and well met.
how are you all?
Have we heard from Artemer lately?
He and I were just chatting a bit.
Nice.
He is looking to find some.
Thank you.
Let's see what he's saying. He's asking if I know any open positions in any role-playing game studios. I work now and was thinking it might be a field that I could do some professional contribution in.
Who?
Artemer,
Oh,
one of the Finnish listeners.
I bet you could at least recommend a
So-
few contacts.
So I said, well, check Paizo, Savage Worlds, Fantasy Flight Games, and of course Wizards of the Coast, but also ping Francesco Nepatello,
Totally.
who is so responsive and friendly and kind, and he would have kind of the
They have a
inside scoop.
great collaborative team.
Yeah.
Wizards
So,
of the Coast.
I think the two of them could finish up.
funny.
It's true.
Funny.
They did card games.
The fifth edition D&D is role-playing gaming. It's the richest background for that they've ever done in D&D for character creation.
Okay. I don't play D&D, so.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why they're on
Will.
the radar.
Yes. So anyway, although I would like to at some point interject a little bit about Tor, because you're doing a little bit later today, and just I'd like to throw in a little bit of role-playing game every now and then. But for now, let's quickly let's introduce ourselves. So again, I'm Hawk Robinson, founder of the Tolkien Society here in Spokane, Washington, on TolkienScholars.org. You also find us under Twitter under Tolkien Scholars and under Google Plus under Tolkien Scholars. Generally, we don't do anything on Facebook anymore. Just had it with Facebook. There's an account there, but I don't do anything with it. Yes, Rick?
Can you confirm with Leah's mother that she can come over early?
Can she text me? Because I'm
She
in the middle
did.
of broadcasting. Okay, then I will confirm, because I'll be here today.
Yeah, I know.
So, all right. And we generally meet on the second Saturday of each month. However, last week, and I'll talk about it a little later, it was in Journey Quest 3 filming. Woohoo! And also there was other scheduling stuff. So we bumped it to the third week. But generally, second Saturday of each month from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific time. And today is April 16th. Those of you in the United States, we got a little extension on tax filing until Monday because of how things worked out.
Uncle Sam, what's his cut?
Yep. And Tolkien Moot's coming up in a few months. It'll be a mini moot, be kind of an exclusive one. So we'll talk a little about that. So, Richard, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Richard.
How long do you think you've been with the Tolkien Society
Well,
now?
I'm a stray pet that wandered in off the street.
As many here are.
How long
I
ago
mean,
was that, Richard? 3 years ago?
2 years.
I think it's been 3.
Could easily be.
Time moves slower for me, so.
Okay. Well, welcome again.
Lorien time zone.
Yeah. Chris?
And I'm Chris Cooperstein, and I am from a neighboring city, the proud father of a valley girl.
And I'm Brian. I'm the secretary. And it's a good day to be a Tolkien fan.
It is.
Every day is a good day to be a
Oh, was there a national
Now,
holiday?
the couple that were joined us last month.
So Peter and Melody Kind will be back next month. They sent the regrets. They had to be, I think, in Seattle to visit some family, but they would love to rejoin us. And she sent me a link to a book on addiction and had to do with the Inklings. So she'll share about that next month. Something cool. Yep.
Very cool. So you can find our previous month's meeting notes under the meeting notes link on the tolkienscholars.org website. Also links to all the previous years of meeting and videos, as well as all the Tolkien Moots. Tolkien Moot is our annual convention that is focused exclusively on Tolkien and his works and happens to have a lot of Tolkien-related gaming as well to help with the immersive learning experience, which is the fun of it. And that comes up on the third weekend of July each year now. We've standardized it.
Which happens to be July the 18th. Yes.
Okay.
The 18th.
Okay.
No,
I don't
16th.
know, I don't know about the.
it's the
specific
16th. It's the 16th because the 17th is a Sunday.
16th, yeah.
So it's actually
16th,
literally
July 16th.
3 months
So
from now.
normally we do 3 days, but this summer, because of my life workload, we'll just be doing an all-day Saturday event. And we'll still have a couple of broadcasts. We will do our monthly Tolkien Society broadcast then rather than on the second Saturday. And then if I can talk Michael Martinez into joining us, as he's been so generous to do each year, we'll have Middle-earth Talk Radio. And then maybe, if there's a third option, but at least 2 broadcasts from there, Tolkien Society and Middle-earth Talk Radio. And then a number of game sessions, role-playing gaming in Tolkien's world. So anyway, let's go ahead and go through our notes. Brian, I don't know if you mentioned you are our secretary for Tolkien Society.
Yep.
And if you would be so kind
Sure.
to read the notes from last month.
All right. So the notes from March 12th for the Tolkien Society meeting. Hawk, Richard, Chris, Brian, Melody, and Peter were here. Corey was not here last month either.
Yeah, we're missing him.
Is he on the email list by chance?
The email list is broken. I have to fix it.
Okay.
So that's my fault. I'm posting on all of the social media and websites, but the email is broken.
Okay. So Hawk, thank you. So I read the February notes last month, and then Hawk read from Collected Vinyar Tengwar. And did we not get a link to their website on here? Well, that was my bad.
I added all of that
You did on
on the website.
So this is probably my
This is
email.
your
to you.
email, isn't it?
Okay. So you linked that up there, and I think we've had it on there before.
Yes.
And so we looked at issue 2 and some of the snippets on there. And there was a fun reference to upgrading from an Apple IIe to a Mac. Imagine that.
Is that an upgrade?
No partisan politics here. So moving on. So discussion.
Yes, links are on the website.
Thank
I
you.
added all those links you requested.
Right. Okay, good. So discussion that we had was does any other fantasy author start with language? And I think we've asked this question before, and I still don't think we've ever found another fantasy author who said, let me start with inventing a language and then creating a world around the language.
Yeah, unless somebody else informs us otherwise, I know of no other fantasy author that started with language first.
And so,
From
of course,
my
this is
experience,
referencing-
usually it starts with map.
So it's reference to Quenya as an Elvish language that Tolkien invented and created and started to weave into it his desire for a new mythology for Britain that would have the best of the old myths, but it would be uniquely British. And so he kind of put this all in a story that was invented around the language.
Because as a philologist, he understood that languages don't evolve in a vacuum, and there are usually events associated with the evolution and
Right.
change of language.
Right.
So he started to create those stories to explain the different variants of the words he liked coming up with in the structure.
Yes. Why would there be differences? There must be a reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then also we looked at some orc words, which was a little different than normal.
Yep.
Burs, as in lugburs, means dark. Ag means into, and means bad. Melody commented on Owen Barfield's poetic diction. Oh yeah, this is the book I was mentioning. So she referred to this. Owen Barfield was one of the inklings. Her question was, did this book, Poetic Diction, influence Tolkien at all? And I think we should just wait until next month to follow that up, I guess, because Melody's not here and she has the book. So
Okay.
maybe we can
Yeah,
follow up that.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
And then Richard thought that there was some reference in Peoples of Middle Earth to Orcish language borrowed from other languages, none of their own, and that also needs further research. Richard, did you find anything
I
out?
forgot to look.
Okay, so we'll continue looking at that next month. We'll just put that forward.
Sorry.
So that's fine. Both of those items will do.
Jitsi compiling.
And
Well, I do
Compiling.
I do happen to have a copy of this at home.
Maybe you could flip through it over.
while I'm talking and doing the boring notes,
It's in the index.
Hawk read out loud an article about Mr. Bliss. I have no recollection of this. You read an article about it. Where was that? An article in Michael Martinez. Wow.
Where article?
Well, yeah, Hawk read out aloud an article about Mr. Bliss.
Oh, remember I found,
Oh, yes, that's right.
yeah, I found, it was a Tolkien Gateway little
Oh.
snippet to an article.
Right.
And actually, it looks like I forgot to put that link because there wasn't a prompt for a link.
No.
And
I forgot
including the Russian fellow who made a video
Yes, we have
of the
that.
story
That's
in
right.
Russian.
Yeah, I've got this down here. So begin.
And I've got the, oh, there it is.
It
It's
is.
began reading. It's in the number.
It's in the
eight.
next point. See,
Yeah, okay.
there's a problem in not looking over all the notes first.
Shame
Yeah.
on you.
Began reading Mr. Bliss, Tolkien's short story for children. All take turns passing it around and reading. And then we had a link to a Russian cartoon of Mr. Bliss.
Yep.
And then also the Tolkien Gateway article link. So thank you for that. I think the Tolkien Gateway link is for Mr. Bliss, the 2004 film. I don't know if we have a link for the article, but anyway.
I linked to both.
Okay, you did.
The Tolkien Gateway link, and then I tracked down and there's a copy on the website of the video.
Right.
So
It looks
just
like
Russia, I think. Do that to us, we can do that to them.
Yeah. It's a good time to learn Russian.
Я не понимаю по-русски. Это русский отдел?
Comments.
Nine.
Tolkien writing for his children. We talked about that in general. And this was in the context of Mr. Bliss,
Right.
the story that he wrote, and how he was a great dad, but also a creative writer for children because of being a dad.
Right.
And that his humor and irony, we reflected on that. The first mention of names Gaffer Gamgee, and
Yeah.
Fatty were actually in Mr. Bliss. Which just
that was a nice
further
surprise.
goes to show the quintessential British gardener kind of
Yeah.
colorful character Gaffer Gamgee represents. So if there was any doubt about the Shire representing, rural England, it is. And then also Tolkien and cars. We really laughed and chuckled at this, that
Yes.
Tolkien owned a car for a time and his family.
And it would appear that Mr. Bliss may be somewhat autobiographical.
Yes. I think so,
Based
because he
on
drove
the
very
testimonies
erratically.
of others about his driving.
Yes, he would not have wanted to drive in a car with.
Charge and scatter.
If you charge them, they scatter.
Uh,
That's awesome.
And then the giraffet,
Yeah,
kind of
the
an
giraffe.
interesting creature, a combination of a giraffe and a rabbit.
Yep.
Very
The rabbit with a
nonsensical.
giraffe's neck.
Yeah,
Basically.
I know, right? So kind of Dr. Doolittle-ish. And then Peter commented on British English and American English prepositions.
Mm.
And so that was interesting as well, looking at how Tolkien's, his choice of words and how it reflected, of course, his cultural context as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the wonderful thing is that though we have been separated for 250 years,
We can still understand each other. For the
yes,
most
we
part.
can, for the most part.
Well, you start getting into the Welsh and Cockney and
Oh, yeah.
stuff like that. It starts to get kind of cryptic.
Oh, yeah. So the next meeting,
The Doctor Who helps unify that.
yeah. It does and it doesn't, because this is kind of a separate topic, but what's really fascinating to me is how for quite a while, and Jeremiah, please, I'd love to hear your comments. So TV, of course, was a kind of a unifier where you had people with different accents in different areas of Britain, but if you were watching the telly, then you have broadcasters who were supposed to speak the Queen's English.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so they speak the Queen's English, or if you're really posh, you do RP, received pronunciation, which is very, it's plum-mouthed, so it's a bit like this, you see.
Mm.
Yes. So it's not just kind of what we would think of as, oh, it's very British and very, we Americans, of course, often don't know the difference, but if they do know a little bit, they realize, oh, like My Fair Lady or whatever, oh, okay, there's these different accents. But even within kind of like proper English, there's grades and differences.
Right.
So that those who, for a time there, if they wanted to be recognized as aristocratic and we don't just speak commonly. And anyway, but now it's very different because all the broadcasters, they actually, it's changed so that you tend to speak more the kind of dialect of English of your area, for the most part, unless you move or something. But people still tend to speak more of a Mancunian accent or a Scouse, which is Liverpool, or Birmingham is famous for having kind of this long. And if you ever watched the old Jungle Book, the Disney,
Which I love.
right, and so the vultures were based on beetles.
Right.
And
Oh, they're like the people around. I've got the hole in my pocket.
and the one guy, he's got, hey, the boy's coming our way.
Yeah.
And so some people, I've heard they say that that's based on a Birmingham accent, which
Okay.
tends to be very slow. And of course, then there's also the stereotypes that go with it. Like, if he talks slow, his mind must be slow as well. And so now I have to say,
Or the American tourist attitude.
Guilty
If you speak it loud enough, they will understand.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
loud we are. There you go.
Can you understand me?
And a very similar thing happened in Japanese broadcasting, that all of the BBC or NHK broadcast was a formal Tokyo Japanese, but all of the comedy shows had to be Osakan, which is a different dialect.
Yeah, that would be
And-
challenging.
Well, that's like
And that
having
is
regular
very-
English for news, and the comedies are written in Cockney.
By the way, condolences for Japan right now in Kyushu Island. So
An earthquake?
2 days ago, they had
Two
a
earthquakes.
6.5. Yesterday, they had a 7.0.
Oh no.
And now they've had like hundreds of aftershocks. And
Yeah.
there's 20, 30 plus people dead and counting.
Oh, dude.
There were fires. I mean, they're being really organized on top of it, but yeah, they're having a tough time right now. I mean, volcanic islands.
The two missionaries that I know in Kyushu are fine.
That's good. Well, good. Jeremiah says, I think that's rather true, i.e. broadcasters do tend to speak in their regional dialect. At least this Yank says, or no, at least what this Yank says, but I actually heard a BBC broadcaster speak about the very subject last week on the radio.
Oh.
And he explained that when he's on the radio, he flattens out into a more generic British accent. Whereas if he's down to the pub with his mates, his accent becomes very broad. He was a Mancunian.
From Manchester.
Fixing the Manchurian.
I
The
did,
Mancunian
I
candidate.
did find that reference.
Good. Yes.
Okay.
Excellent.
On
See,
the
you did.
I wonder why that is. I mean, if you're with people from the same geographical region, I guess you reinforce each other while you're talking. You, especially if you're having a good time, you know, and you're laughing and talking.
Oh, and
loudly.
your ear adapts to it, and then the other way sounds odd.
I have a really embarrassing habit that whenever I'm talking on the phone, I mean, it could be in person, but usually it's on the phone. If I'm talking to somebody who has a different accent than I do, my accent starts to chameleonize to whatever theirs is. Not perfectly, but it's definitely, it shifts. So my wife can tell whoever I'm talking to.
The politicians who do that in the South.
We should elect you.
No thanks.
What is that? Is they had full yet with how many daughters? 5, 6, 7, 1,
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
6.
Yeah, I need the whole country breathing on my neck.
Yeah. That's a lot.
I need people to like throw mud at my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Joke about the size of my hands.
Oh, come on.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. It's anyhow.
Never mind.
Yes, American politics right now are a
Yes.
complete circus. I mean,
Oh.
they always were.
At least
It's
3
a whole
weeks.
new level.
So thank you, Jeremiah. This is interesting to hear. And I guess if we, you know, being again going back to Tolkien,
Mm-hmm.
creatures of language, creatures of thought and idea, it's I wonder, yeah, you know, like who will take up that mantle, you know, of exploring language. Maybe nobody will ever will quite like he did, but it just seems like this is an interesting niche.
Seamus Heaney, who I've mentioned a number of times because his 2000 or so translation of Beowulf directly attributes Tolkien as the reason why Beowulf is now part of our classical education for high school, college, etc. And he passed away just a few years ago. Well, they just announced this week on NPR or whatever that there's going to be a posthumous release of a work he was doing on the Iliad.
Virgil's Aeneid.
It's the
Yeah.
trip to hell. It's the Aeneid.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's the Aeneid, right?
I think so.
With Cerberus and all of that.
Yes.
Yeah. So this was what he considered his favorite life work, but he was kind of niggling at it for 30 years. And so his daughter found it on his computer and it says final draft.
Wow.
So they're releasing that shortly of this section that he did.
Must be good
And-
enough for government work then.
Yeah. Well, so they were reading excerpts and he did it in a very colorful, they said you could use this as a screenplay right away. It's just visually evokes imagery. So they read a few snippets and it sounded really fun. So we'll have to watch out for that. So
That's link worthy. I'll put a
Yes.
thing on there. Thanks, Talk.
you are welcome.
Okay, so
Richard found his orc reference in the Peoples in the World.
Please
And you have in the library right here.
Nice.
It's footnote 16.
It's footnote 16, yeah.
Language is at the end of the Third Age.
Okay.
It's the kind of elongated double S.
Oh, right, yeah,
I
okay.
don't know what that's called. The orcs had a language of their own, devised for them by the Dark Lord of old. But it was so full of harsh and hideous sounds and vile words that other mouths found it difficult to compass, and few indeed were willing to make the attempt. And these creatures, being filled with all malice and hatred, so that they did not love even their own kind, had soon diversified their barbarous and unwritten speech into many jargons as their word groups or settlements of orcs. Thus, they were driven to the use of language of their enemies, even in conversing with other orcs of different breed or distant dwellings.
Like Westeros,
Yeah.
trade language.
Yeah.
In the Misty Mountains and other lingering orc holds on the far northwest, they had indeed abandoned their native tongue and used the common speech, although in such a fashion as to make it scarcely less unlovely than the Orcish, which was What I got from that was that basically each tribe of orc had their own language.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
You haven't heard Shakespeare.
In the original
Yeah.
orc.
Oh, man.
Star Trek 6?
Six.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then,
Undiscovered Country.
and then
In
Kirk
stereo,
goes,
where available.
and then Kirk goes,
Yes.
well, on another matter.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Let's boost
Christopher
the dogs
Potter
of
is
war.
great when I come on in general.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, the Klingon language was made without consonants. I mean, was all consonants.
Yeah, no
There's
vowels.
no vowels,
So I was like, what? Yeah. Okay.
which is ancient
So close to Czechoslovakian.
ancient Hebrew. So the way Tolkien did Elvish was the vowels were extra symbols on top.
Oh.
So if you strip that, then you get Klingon because there are no vowels.
With a Finnish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's confusing because Finnish uses a lot of vowels. Somebody made a bad joke in one of the chat rooms earlier today about this is scatological, so but they made a bad joke about they must have some sort of digestive issues within Finns must have digestive issues because they have so many vowel movements.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wrote. Ouch.
How many vowels do they have?
Well,
they're
it's the
cows.
same vowels, but they use a lot of compound
Their
vowels,
cows
and you
have
have to pronounce each one generally.
7 vowels.
Okay, and so for our, what do we have for our to-do list? I actually don't show that on here. What we were
It would be typically,
I mean, we'll do our
Vineyard
words
Terroir
of
and
the
letters to
Vineyard
Tolkien.
Terroir.
we didn't have any specific book to
Okay.
read.
Great. And I did get my copy of Mr. Bliss. This is a lovely reprint of the 1982 version, the 2007, I'd say.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is that that's
and
not
the
been
artwork is
reprinted.
beautifully.
You look at it and it's still the first imprint, which means
Well, no,
they've
this
got-
is the
That
fourth
one has been
reprint
redone.
of the
But what's
1982.
the year?
2011.
It has.
And it has been redone.
It
Yeah,
has.
this
Okay.
edition 2011. Copyright 1982.
Oh, okay.
So the front part has been redone, but they
But just packed
keep
full of
the
artwork and
original
everything.
in the back.
It's just a
Exactly.
lovely version.
Sorry, I'm
It's
just
great condition.
remembering.
I found it on Amazon. So
I'm just remembering Tolkien's method for crossing intersections.
yes, charge them and they scatter.
Maybe he learned that from Mr. Toad.
Again, I think that might be autobiographical.
Maybe all British.
When he
I
got
would
the
say-
car, let's see, when he got the car it was like post World War II, right?
Yeah.
So things
When
were
did you
just
have-
recovering,
Oh.
so there weren't a lot of cars initially on the road. So in the
Much
short
to do.
term, that would work. In the long term, not so well.
I was thinking that Tolkien learned his driving habits from Mr. Toad.
Right.
Well, I'm just saying that he could probably get away with those habits for a little while.
So I will read a quick summary from the editorial comment on the Vineyard Terroir, November 1988. Or did we already cover that one? Let's see. Let's see, which one did we cover? We did. Issue 2. Okay, so we did that one already. Okay. So let's jump to the next one. Vineyard Terroir, January 1989. This is issue number 3. And it has an artwork of an orc reading a book called The Joy of Spawning by I.M. Defoe, PhD. It says an orc act reading.
That's terrible. Is this 1983?
Yeah, 9.
1989.
9?
Anyhow.
I have no way
Perfect, you got it.
Yeah.
That's it. Excellent. Thank you. It's January 1989. This is issue number 3. In the editorial, it says, in this issue, I present 2 fine articles. The first one deals with a dialogue in Quenya The second is about Orcish and the Ring poem and the possible discovery of hitherto unknown Orcish words. Oh, did we cover that as well? With the Orcish article and artwork, perhaps this issue could be called a special Orcish issue of Lunar Tango. Also, we had more people make public their opinions about the sequel to ITE. I have no idea what that is. Good reading.
If it's an Orcish
Yeah, so
issue,
a lot
is
of
it trying
letters.
to light you on fire?
No, my love.
Conversational Quenya. And it is a conversation in Quenya. Let us sit here, fair lady. Haralve sinome vine hirie. That was Eldemir. Findome says, you have found a seat by the fire, I'll come. So Findome says, Utuvi el harma ar ainar tuluvan. To which Eldemar replies, the jewels of snow in your hair sparkle like stars out of the darkness. Oh, this will be fun.
I'll just pick up line.
Yes, indeed. I miri loseva
Try that.
So we can subtitle this.
Tindargase tintilar ve elemi moniello. I'm probably slaughtering this. So anyway, that's pages 4 and 5. It goes back and forth in having a little conversational in Quenya. So he's picking her up at the bar. Sort of.
Which
Or they're picking him up, they're picking each other up. I don't know.
which
Okay.
issue is this, by the way?
Issue 3, 1989, January 1989. The next one is Orc Talk. Orc Talk. That sounds like a TV show.
Geraldo.
Well, we did all, Michael Martinez did a little spin-up thing at a couple of Tolkien moots of Hobbit chat. I'm suddenly blanking.
Maybe we should do for
But it
the
was,
Tolkien Minute. Maybe we should do a spoof of a political talk show called Orc Talk.
yeah, no kidding. William Shatner's, what was it? William Shatner's talk show.
That was his novel series that was horrible.
Man, I recall that. I'm still tired from this week. It's been a crazy week. Let's see. Martinez. Let's see. Oh, Raw Hobbit. That's right, because it was Raw Talk for Shatner, I think. And so Michael Martinez came up with a Raw Hobbit, and it was a
I never realized that was
face-to-face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a face-to-face interview in a more free-flowing style, and we did.
Yes.
And he interviewed a number of, like Rotea, the Elvis singer, and stuff like that. All of that's on our YouTube channel and stuff, and also on the website. You can check all those out.
Okay, so what was the connection there to Raw Hobbit?
I was going to say Orc Talk, like that could be another talk show and spin-off of guys. So Jeremiah Burns says, Orc Talk, I thought that was The View.
Shots fired.
Are you sure it's not a political talk show with Donald Trump as a guest?
Right, yeah. Well, yeah. That was clearly implied earlier. Ardemir is asking,
in Iran.
a little tangential, but he says, have any of you guys done any work for an actual RPG company or board game one? I have to order the new edition of A Secret Vice, which I'm not familiar with. A Secret Vice. If you could elaborate a little bit there. I have not done anything official. We've had a number of guests on Tolkien Society, so like John D. Ratliff worked for years for Wizards of the Coast, and they had a Tolkien role-playing game project in the 90s, which he spoke about at MerpCon 4, I think it
So
was.
this is something that never came to finally publish.
And they had a mock-up. He had a mock-up box ready to go of the Tolkien role-playing game. And he talked about it. Again, video is available at Tolkien channel, and all the different things there because they were hoping to get the license from.
Did they give a cease and desist or what?
They just decided there wouldn't be enough interest. Yeah. This is
What time was this?
Just before the Peter Jackson.
Oh
movies got
my
picked up.
goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, if I remember correctly.
That
screwed up.
was their excuse.
They screwed up.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, so they canned it. They dropped it. They didn't think there'd be enough interest.
I should bring, I have a
Because Iron Crown was struggling, so.
I have a board game that was a Lord of the Rings board game that was put out in the late 90s, and it was designed by a German game maker.
Okay.
And so it predates the movies, but only by a few years.
Well, I have a really early board game from the early 80s, which is that big green box that's all these map tiles, and it's like the Fellowship of anyway, it has like a ton of dice, 6-sided dice. It had a whole bunch of red ones, a whole bunch of black ones, a whole bunch of green, they're little ones, and you try to, get from one end to the other, but all the tiles laid out would take up, a double table.
And then
I
there
still
was,
have that
and there was a
downstairs.
game based on Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings film,
Yeah.
which also had kind of a tile kind of
Okay,
thing.
and it was Ironclad Enterprises that did the one I have. I have that downstairs. So no, unfortunately, I have not. Everything I've done has been self-published or published in a zine and such. And then because of my recreation therapy, I create these kits that are ready to go adventure modules. Obviously, I shave out the Tolkien parts because of licensing. So they become genericized, but to work with like autism spectrum and stuff like that. But I happily borrow the same themes and ideas and such.
Yeah, the only companies that we have a real connection with are the ones that we do ourselves.
Well, and there's only 3 licensed companies over the years for Tolkien, for Tolkien role-playing game. And it was Ironclad Enterprises, Decipher, who did not renew, and then Cubicle 7, who has renewed. And is cranking out new stuff. And that was something I did want to talk about was they have now their Rohirrim supplement with modules on the way. So they have recently come out with a Rohan supplement for the One Ring role-playing game of Cubicle 7. So that's exciting.
And
to get my hands on that.
they've
And
also
they recently came out with the Ruins of the North as well. Just
And-
before that.
yeah,
There's more on the way.
yep. And then also I should probably read out talk about something else. But
Well, I was going to show you. I stumbled when the One Ring was coming out. I was helping promote the heck out of it, and I forgot I made this because Cubicle 7 Sophisticated Games didn't have any promotional material to send, and I was trying to help make people aware of it. So I made this. It's on board by taking because I was one of the first 75 people to get the rules in the U.S. without being at Gen Con. And so I made this from, a photo of the book and then printed it out large and then had this up at Merlin's local gaming store. And then I ran demo sessions the week it arrived before it was publicly available and stuff. So to try to help promote it. So I was doing my own little promoting it because it was nice to see a better, because Decipher was such a mess. Chris Seaman did a good job with the Moria box and such, but the rule system was such an incomplete mess. Now, the Halls of Fire people tried to shore all that up, but it didn't have any corporate support or anything to get the word out. And I never found anybody who wanted to run the Decipher World of the Rings. So, but the Cubicle 7 tour has been really enjoyable, and Brian has enjoyed it. And I still love Merp. I still love Rollmaster. In different ways. But Tor, they did a good job. Francesco Neptella and the others did a wonderful job capturing the feel and the essence of Tolkien's world. You can argue about game mechanics and style and all of that. This is a more abstracted style as opposed to Ironclad Enterprise's more gritty style. But they did do a beautiful job with the feel of the setting, I think.
I really like some of the dynamics, for example, like the fellowship phase. I've been just exploring that more, and the idea also of encounters. We really tried to explore the social side of role-playing game, which is so strong, but specifically in terms of how different ways in which you interact with non-player characters. So that, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I want to just mention, if you don't mind, so as of April 5, the One Ring Journeys and Maps pre-order now.
Yes, I'm actually about to order both.
Journeys and Maps is a set of 4 double-sided large format maps covering the greater part of known Middle-earth, Eriador, Wilderland, Rohan, and Gondor/Mordor. With player maps and hex lore master maps, these provide an invaluable play aid for planning your One Ring journeys.
This is a larger version, but that's nice to have. I mean, we all, gamers, we love maps.
Also included is a 32-page supplement with rules for water travel by sea and river, and index to all locations covered in the One Ring role-playing game supplements to date. a system for detailing ruins found along the road, a useful collection of terrain-specific hazards, and a section detailing natural wonders, lodgings, and fellow travelers your company might find along the way. Written by Francesco Nepatello, Andrew Kenrick, T.S. Lucart, and Marco Raffala, and with art by Paul Bourne, Andy Hepworth, John Hodgson, and Sam Manley, Journeys and Maps makes the perfect addition to your One Ring collection and is a must-have for your One Ring games. And again, that's from Cubicle 7, who they put out a whole raft of different games, including
Doctor Who and
Lone Wolf. So I don't know. I would suggest Artemir to look into contacting Cubicle 7.
He'd already put in an application, but I was telling him to talk to Francesco for the inside connection. And pointing to your art or Mard work. So he also asked, yes, I know about John D. Ratliff, but I hadn't heard that he actually designed an own Tolkien-based RPG. Has he made that material available somehow? So it was while he was at Wizards of the Coast. It was a Wizards of the Coast assignment to make a Tolkien RPG. It wasn't just him, it was a team. And they retained all the rights to that because they never had a license. But I think he has the prototype box. But no, he can't make it publicly accessible. He talks about it in depth in the I believe it was MercCon 4, aka Tolkien Moot 2008, I think. Yeah, 2008.
And would there be pictures on that?
I don't think he brought it. I think he described it.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember at this point now. It's been enough years I've forgotten. But it's on the YouTube channel and can definitely check. He goes in great detail about all the challenges of that. And he also wrote some supplementary articles that I hopefully are still linked to on the website that he wrote after MercCon to add to, because he only had an hour talk. And that MercCon, we had both Michael Martinez and John D. Ratliff. So we had one session with just John and then one session with Michael, and the two of them together. And I just mostly just let the two of them just go. They fed off each other. It was a pleasure. Well, just listening to them just talk about all the Tolkien and gaming stuff. So it was a lot of fun. So all those videos are all really available. But no, as far as I know, he can't make that publicly accessible. Jeremiah states, when I said The View, or when he said The View, he says, I hear no arguments. He says, man, I need to hang out with more tabletop people, but then I also need another 12 hours in the day so that I can do everything I want to do. Yeah, I relate to that. Yes, Trey.
$5, you make my choice.
Right this second?
In like 5 minutes or so.
Why?
Because I ordered pizza.
Okay, hang on. I'm in the middle of the podcast here.
Pizza break.
So that's yeah, I relate to that on the hours. I cut back most of my projects this year so I can finish school.
Do you want me to read a little bit there for you if you need?
Read what?
Did you want me to read a little bit for you?
So we have the latest Amenhen. Yeah, if you want to do this, from the latest Amenhen.
And are you done with
just quick general meeting notes and just a couple of highlights? There's also talk about these two things that are coming up as well.
So you're done with doing your tank board for now, right?
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm bored about ADHD.
Let's discuss.
So it has more Orcish words. Here are some possible Orc talk glosses. I have chosen these words which seem closest in form and or meaning of the character or word in the context of the story as possible, originates, etc., although other stems also seemed likely. Galog, Galod, Noldoran, a Nodal, plural ending. Sharku, this is...
Wouldn't Orcish be more guttural, though?
Okay. Galog!
Sorry.
That's all right. So, here we go. Sharku, which he relates to the Kuzdal Farakun, old man. So Sharku, S-H-A-R-K-U with an accent mark over the U, is old man.
Kuzdal is what, Dwarvish?
In Kuzdal, yeah, Kuzdal is Dwarvish.
So they borrowed from Elvish.
So Farakun, remember his premise was that, as you were reading, that a lot of the stuff gets borrowed from the local areas and such. So
Whether
he's trying to find roots that
whether it be
match.
Dwarvish or whether it be Elvish or whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah, they don't care who they raid.
Including
Azog or Osh in black speech. One as in first or soldier. So
Huh.
first soldier or one soldier.
one ring to rule them.
Yeah, Osh, Naz, Gimel, that's black speech.
Oh, right.
This is Orcish, Azog, but related to Osh.
I guess
Because
black,
again, this is this guy's
black speech would be
idea. It's not
would be the
established.
language made by Morgoth.
Right, that's Morbath, yeah, the black speech. That was the one he tried to, he uses that's his common tongue for
the
all
others.
his people that he controls.
In stick.
To try to make them, well, for the Easterlings and the Haradrim and the orcs and the trolls and all these different ones that had their own tongue, that was their common tongue. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like Beijing Chinese Mandarin. It's a mandated version, but you start going out in the other provinces and they can't understand each other. But it's an attempted common tongue. Gothmog. Terror, oppression, lord, master.
All jumbled together. Makes sense.
He goes through a lot of different routes, but that's the basic of it. Now this is interesting because in gaming I've heard this as a completely different meaning. It says, well, okay, it could be related. Snaga, which he has as snar for tie or bound, and then snas for spearhead. Now, generally what I've seen in the Tolkien gaming literature is snaga is basically slave. It's like if you call a lowly orc a snaga, you're calling him a peon, a slave, or something like that. And that the snaga were basically the lowest end grunts of the orc culture.
And the higher ups
Social
probably
stratification.
made a big deal of it.
Yeah, the snaga. So that should be enough of that orcish there. Artemir says, okay, yeah, I probably watched those talks and just forgotten about it. Yeah, so. Because Artemir's been around for a long time supporting this. There's also notice that the upcoming 5th issue of Vinyard Tengwar is going to be a special humor issue. So start sending in your submissions, pseudo-scholarly studies, parodies, jokes, riddles, etc., dealing with Tolkien or Elvish.
Don't send in your submissions now.
Yeah, no, this is 1989. Let's do the time warp again. You can send them back in time. Go for it.
If you have a postal time machine.
The ITE is Introduction to Elvish. Some thoughts on various people on the proposed sequel to an Introduction to Elvish. So that's what and that's just heavily discussed.
You know who that I think that wrote that was what's his name? The expert on the Lord of the Rings DVDs.
Salo?
Yeah,
Really?
I think so. I think he did one of those books.
No.
Did you get enough rest?
This is where I wish Michael was around.
Yeah, he'd know.
Yeah. He
Should I mention the Tolkien Society news?
Yes, that's what I say. Mention those quick bulletins. I'll grab some.
So the spring.
Also, the very beginning mentioned the this piece right here.
Okay. So the spring moot, which is already over because that was on April 9th, was in York.
Oops.
And then they also have their Tolkien Society seminar, which is the one that I went to last summer in Leeds. And this one's on Sunday, the 3rd of July. And that's really worthwhile. And I would suggest anybody listening who's in the UK to go to that. So Jeremiah, you don't have an extra 12 hours right now, but maybe you could find the time to get to Leeds because you are up in the north. So you have no excuse at all.
He could just give up sleep.
And the topic is life, death, and immortality. Bookings are now open, and Jeremiah could submit an abstract.
He could.
He could.
What did those do?
We are now calling for papers on selected theme. If you would like to deliver a talk of between 15 and 30 minutes, send a proposal by 250 words to Daniel Helen on 25 March.
Okay, so you can't send one because it's passed, but
But you can always send one, and it will be available for the following year.
that's right.
Good point.
You want to read this part?
Seminar coincides with the 100th anniversary of the Battle of the Somme. Tolkien fought and survived this dreadful battle, but lost his close friend and fellow TCBS member Rob Gilson with the death of G.B. Smith later this year. The First World War undoubtedly shaped Tolkien's outlook on life and death, with mortality and immortality looming large in the Middle-earth legendarium and other writings.
And it's only 20 pounds for non-members, Jeremiah. So
Either sign up and become a member, or
you could take your wife on a date and get babysitting. I really
just go.
get a childminder. It'll be wonderful. She'll just love it.
On a side note,
Artemir says, sorry, I've been watching with some delay, not live. Yeah, I'm sorry about the delay. There is a latency too from when we say it to when it gets out to you over the YouTube stream and Google Plus stream. So not a problem. We totally understand, Artemir.
on a side note, it's the 100-year anniversary of the Battle of Verdun.
Cool.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
First battle we're doing. Yeah.
And then Jeremiah says, phew, drat. Context for Hawk. Phew equals, I don't have to submit a paper as I missed the deadline. Drat equals, oh dear, it's still doable for next year. I'm not listening. Not listening.
Yeah, now that you've been outed, my friend, we know your essay's been put into the book with in honor of Berlin Flieger or whatever. So
Well, and they were supposed to get back to me when remember in 2011 they did my paper on Tolkien and trees because they're supposed to create a printed version of that, but they have not heard that.
well, that's somewhat.
It's all volunteer based, so
It is.
I mean, I have a lot of projects that are unfinished too on that front. So
And honestly, when I went there, it was a small and kind of informal. I mean, it was very nicely done, but it was a small gathering. The AGM, they've got like over 100 people, but at the seminar, there were literally like 30 people,
okay.
and they had a slideshow going.
I wish they had somebody with my technical acumen to help them broadcast this stuff or record this stuff.
Yeah, they had somebody recording it, but it was not live at all.
So that's a task for Jeremiah
There you go.
to find someone technical.
Not mine. I was a minor contributing factor, he says.
Okay, no pressure, but you could still go and be a fly on the wall. I mean, what a great theme though, life, death, and immortality, and the centennial of the Battle of the Somme. I mean, who else might be there again is they might have, last time they had John Garth, and I got a signed bookmark by him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
He says the Flieger paper was almost entirely Tom Hillman and Simon Cook.
Right.
So again, for our viewers, Jeremiah Burns is in the UK, Artemir is in Finland, and we're here in Spokane, Washington, USA. So that's right. International.
So that's it for Tolkien Society News.
Hello.
You heard it.
Live opening. We are currently live for the Tolkien Society broadcast. Yeah, because I did my Journey Quest pirate thing, so I didn't get the big bushy beard anymore.
Cool.
Just commenting on shaving off the beard. So
One more accent.
yeah, here's the baby face.
You heard it first on M1
Yeah. So and I as I keep mentioning it. So last Saturday, Zombie Orpheus Entertainment was shooting like their 8th day. They now have 2 more days of shooting left out of their 2-week schedule of shooting Journey Quest Season 3. Journey Quest is a comedy fantasy setting. Those of you familiar with Terry Pratchett's Discworld, one of the main characters, I suspected all these years was modeled heavily after Rincewind, the yellow robe who flees all the time, who's bad at magic. It seemed really likely. Well, I got some inside scoop that, oh yeah, it's heavily based on the character, but there will be no luggage because that would be jumping the shark, end quote. So the luggage is this luggage that follows you around with hundreds of little feet in the bottom, and it follows, and it will follow you across the planet. It'll go under the ocean and come back up to catch up with you. So your luggage will always be with you eventually. And they will not be having the luggage in Journey Quest. But the character is named short for Superfluous, and he is a cowardly, incompetent wizard in yellow robes who tends to run a lot, run away, who is teamed up with an elf and a clerig.
Out and running away.
Yes. who's teamed up with an elf and a cleric on a journey initially to find the Temple of All Dooms and get the great legendary sword. So they did seasons 1 and 2 years ago, and these are the same people who made the Gamers movies, the Gamers 2, Dorcas Rising, Gamers 3, Hands of Fate, Gamers Humans and Households, Gamers. So Humans and Households is a flip on the thing where the Gamers series is you're here in the real world, you're gamers, and then you're playing these role-playing characters, and then the video switches to those characters in the fantasy setting. Humans and Households flips that around, where you're medieval people playing in this postmodern industrial age, whatever. And so one character is a hippie, another one is a hockey player, which is like fighter class, right? And the hippie's like kind of bard something, I don't know what. Another one is like, I don't know, business person, right? So, and then you're trying to do this adventure in a modern day world. It's just a one episode, one shot as well.
I have a question.
They shot that in Canada.
Does the Temple of All Dooms have a large selection of the famous swords, or is it just one item?
Just one, but it has many dooms. And then, and he's also traveling with a fighter who's really terrible. So
You want to talk about the special opportunity, what you were doing?
well, so these are the last few have been Kickstarter funded, and in Gamers 3, I got to play a small part of Pirate number 2, and then this time around, I got to play just a tavern patron. I'm tavern patron number 3 with one line, and we're in there cheering on this bard. So you have on the one side of the story the adventurers, Superfluous and his fellow adventurers, and on the other side of the same story is the bard who's trying to write the stories of their adventures, which so far have been terrible. It's like, because she's actually turns out they didn't want to give her a good one, so they gave her one that they would never matter. But of course,
I
there's a
vaguely
twist.
remember that storyline.
Yeah, Ren.
And she's
So
trying
Ren the bard.
She's trying to do her PhD equivalent.
Right, exactly. She's come out fresh out of bard school, and this is her internship, if you will. And she has to write a great epic to get her final degree, basically. And so that's Ren the bard, and of course she has to not meddle with the storyline, because if you do, you have your bard license revoked, basically. Don't meddle, don't be part of the storyline. So she's trying to observe and write all these things down while trying to stay out of the picture, but of course there's complications. And I mean, that's just a really high level. There are arguments. There's a battle with orcs arguing grammar, orcish grammar. There's a grammar argument.
So there's an orcish Nazi.
Well, it's actually the wizard who's correcting the orc's grammar. And the other orc's like, no, it's this be. And he's like, no, it's is. And he's like, the other orc says to him, well, yeah, that's actually right. In the orc subtitles and stuff. And it's basically kind of a rough Latin variant, vulgar Latin variant. And there's a whole book, Matt Vance, who wrote all these series, those made an English orc translation dictionary and uses it consistently.
I remember
and all these movies,
the orc character.
collectible card games, role-playing gaming, live-action role-playing, and this Journey Quest series are all part of the same shared universe. So there's intermingling and overlapping. So anyway, so I got to have fun, and we shot all day, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Got to hang out with the cast. I uploaded little photos and video clips, and the bard kisses my character on the cheek. Had to do 12 takes of that. Oh no. That's a good thing my girlfriend's cool with that. They had a lot of fun, but it was, and also I copied so that the orc tavern keeper doesn't beat me up. So anyway, you can check it out. It's Journey Quest, and season 3, last few days of shooting. They'll do a little, then they can start post-production, and hopefully in a month or 3 it'll be available. You can watch the previous 2 seasons all for free. So that was a blast of a Saturday.
And and for the city, we dealt with Z Nation scoping shooting at the waste energy facility.
Oh, really?
Last week.
That was last
Is the city
And
going to allow it?
they have filmed previously 2 times at the treatment plant.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, okay, cool.
That's
All
a
right. I
television
hope they're
show,
not
right?
planning to put zombies in the treatment water.
Which is worse?
It's a
No, I
good,
feel bad for the extras.
it's a good industrial
floaters.
setting to
What a waste.
to film these.
What a waste.
What a waste.
Well, it'd be the floaters of the floaters.
But what about the ones that are way steep?
Oh, boy. So, yeah. All right, where were we? I guess we've been squeezing a little bit of Michael Martinez before we do letters.
Yes, let's do that.
Squeezing Michael
I'm
Martin.
skipping some articles. Yeah, I'm sure Michael won't mind that we're squeezing it. Middle Earth Online. So these are pretty dated from Visualizing Middle Earth, the collection of essays, August 1999. Skip that. Can Middle Earth survive the commercialization of Tolkien? So this would be interesting to look at this in hindsight, see how it compares. So this was written August 27th, 1999.
Wow.
Do
To
the
me,
time
that's
book again.
relatively recent.
Entitled Can Middle Earth Survive the Commercialization of Tolkien?
Because my first showing of the Fellowship of the Ring was in Japan, in Osaka, in 2001.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So in a letter written to his son Christopher, j.r.r. Tolkien mentioned receiving the International Fantasy Award from the 15th Worldcon in 1957.
Huh.
I was at the 83rd Worldcon this year, this August. I spoke. I was on 3 panels and presentations and stuff like that. So that's cool. So 15th, 1957. And that's where they give out the Hugo Awards.
And this is for what award was it? World Fantasy what?
International Fantasy Award from the 15th Worldcon. It's the Hugo Award for science fiction and fantasy.
Oh, but they didn't call it the Hugo Award yet.
I guess not. I don't know. He added that afterward he was visited by Forrest J. Ackerman. Why is that name familiar? The name's familiar.
Well,
And several other people who pitched the idea of making a movie based on The Lord of the Rings. They've apparently toured America shooting mountain and desert scenes that seemed to fit the story. The storyline or scenario was, however, on a lower level. In fact, bad. But it looks as if business might be done. Stanley, you and I have agreed on our policy, art or cash. Either very profitable terms indeed, or absolute author's veto on objectionable features or alterations.
Interesting. Not against it, but with terms.
Yeah. Although many people like to cite, and now back to Michael Martinez, although many people like to cite letters from Tolkien where he comments first on a synopsis and then on an actual script for the proposed movie written in 1958, Tolkien eventually settled for cash and control over the film rights and all associated merchandising. And control over the film rights passed out of Tolkien's hand forever. Was this the ideal solution? For Tolkien, it probably was. He was only one man, no matter how popular his book, and the Hollywood machine rolls on its own inflexible way. One either dances to the piper's tune or one leaves the party. Tolkien eventually realized a considerable income from book sales, especially after The Lord of the Rings took off with the American youth movement of the 1960s, although those ace books were pirated. Bad copies, but
He must have been set up for a little bit more of a comfortable retirement.
Yeah. Oh, and Artemir points out correctly, next year's Worldcon will be in Helsinki, and he will most likely go there. Awesome. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to make it out there, unfortunately, but
You're not going to your familial roots?
I know my father's side's Finnish. Yeah, someday I want to. The advent of a paperback edition of the book, too, in fact, resulted in a growth in readership which had previously not been experienced by any author of fantasy or science fiction. Tolkien was what we called the man in today's parlance. Okay, 1999 parlance.
Okay.
And he stayed on top ever since. Harry Potter, arguably. The film rights did not go away. They passed to Saul Zaentz, who set up a subsidiary to the Saul Zaentz company called Tolkien Enterprises. It was Zaentz who licensed the film rights to Ralph Bakshi, and Zaentz who has been selling licenses to merchandisers around the world to produce Tolkien games, figures, and paraphernalia. When it comes to commercializing Tolkien's work, Zaentz is the man. Zaentz has been controlling the merchandising all along. And a little update. So it was the Salzanes Company. Eventually they called it Tolkien Enterprises, not to be confused with the Tolkien Estate. The Tolkien Estate is the family, that's Tolkien's family, and they retain all literary rights to the books and such. Zanes just has the movie rights to The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and the merchandising thereof. They do not have the rights to the Silmarillion and all the other works of Tolkien. Only the Tolkien Estate has that. And they've been pretty tight with that.
Understandable,
But
considering the
less
business.
aggressive than Salzane's Tolkien Enterprises Company. Tolkien Enterprises Company goes after fandom for any derivative efforts and stuff that go out there, and they argue, oh, it's diluting the market, blah blah blah. So they aggressively have done periods where they go and shut down websites, now under the DMCA and stuff. I remember in 2004 when they shut down like 70 Tolkien fan sites, gaming and non gaming, just fan sites, and Merc.com was one of the ones that was attacked, but thanks to Electronic Frontier Foundation, it was able to fend that off quite effectively. But that was one of the few sites that survived that purge. And about every 6 to 12 years, they do these purges.
Like Stalin.
Yeah. Now, in more recent years, they changed their name, maybe to reduce confusion, to Middle Earth Enterprises. So it's still Salzane's company, but instead of Tolkien Enterprises, it's Middle Earth Enterprises.
So is Salzane still alive?
I don't know, but everything I've read and heard about him is he is not a nice guy. He gets authors' rights to movies, lots of people. I think he did like The Englishman and a few others. And he has a really bad reputation of ripping off the authors and just being, he's a ruthless businessman, is everything I've read. Not a nice guy. But anyway, I've never met him. I don't know personally, but.
This is why you can understand why Christopher and the other members of the family would not want to
They don't like to
let
deal
the
with
Silmarillion,
Right.
the rights to pass.
Yeah, because they watched it. And let's see. So Jeremiah says Tolkien was the man. Filing this under things I never imagined I'd hear someone say. How did The Hunt for Gollum ever manage to get made? Is it because it was made freely available? So that's a great point. So both Hunt for Gollum and
Born of Hope.
Born of Hope are fan films that are derivative works technically. So how did they get away with it? That is a very good point. First of all, they don't use any of the actual script or dialogue or text or anything from any of the books.
Yeah.
Just from the appendices.
They do, right. They use, well, no, they use actual characters in Hunt for Gollum. They use Aragorn and Smeagol.
Okay, yes.
Right? That is Aragorn and Gollum.
Yeah, that's right.
And it is referenced on his Hunt for Gollum, but it's only briefly referenced. But this is fan fiction, and generally, Enterprises have gone after them.
Creative license,
They could have gone after them,
they could have, but
but for some reason,
but
and they're not
there's
consistent.
general consensus, at least.
No, it's considered
in-
derivative work.
in
Hunt for Gollum
other-
is heavily
yeah.
derivative. They did shut down other projects. There was the Silmarillion one.
The French one, 2 years
Well,
ago.
there was a Canadian one too, about 6 years
the
ago.
Gondolin thing.
Yeah, that
Right, Gondolin one,
that
yeah.
was the French one.
Oh, was that French? Was that French Canadian?
Yeah, that was the
Okay.
in France. They were making that, and
Yeah.
it got shut down about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Right. So it's not consistent.
No, it's.
My
not.
understanding is because they released it for free, so everybody who did it, the production quality is quite good, especially Born of Hope. But Hunt for Gollum 2 was pretty good production quality. They did it in the style of Peter Jackson, and because they released it completely free, didn't make any advertising money or anything like that. Nobody got paid. Somehow they Tolkien Estate and Enterprises looked the other way and basically let them do it.
Maybe because they just said,
And I was stunned because as cutthroat as they've been with other projects,
Yeah.
I've never quite understood how they slipped through the radar on that.
but if they
For
were
both of
making
those
money on it, that
projects.
might have been it. Because if there was the taste of the smell of money, then
It's
then Enterprise.
But
would be
there have been
all over
other
it.
projects that weren't trying to make money at all that have been shut down time and time again as derivative work. I mean, there's slash fiction and fan fiction. People just write stuff
Oh, yeah.
I wonder
and they get shut down.
could be whichever lawyer happens to be working on it at the time.
it really puzzled me. I was like so sure both those projects would be shut down the way I mean, there's musicians. There's an Australian group that did a really good job, Anois, Anois, who's a really good Celtic folk group. And they were working on a whole Middle Earth album. And they had pretty much recorded all of it, and they were giving out free samples, and I managed to grab a few before they got shut down because they needed a license for it. So I wish I had a clear answer. Maybe Michael Martinez himself has tracked that closer. I tried to figure out how they got
Actually,
shut
how did the Gondolin project get shut down? Because that's not under the copyright.
I think that was
Enterprises.
down. That was Tolkien estate.
Oh.
That was Tolkien estate. And generally the estate doesn't pursue stuff. They're pretty laid back.
I think they're
compared
pretty
to
protective of the
Enterprises.
Silmarillion. I have a feeling.
But yeah, they are protected the Silmarillion, but again, it wasn't directly, it was heavily derivative, but it wasn't a direct ripoff. It was pretty close. But,
Wow.
so yeah, it's really, it's puzzling, and I wish, I'll be so glad if they quit extending Mickey Mouse, then
Yeah,
eventually be public domain, because I have a dream to do the whole Silmarillion,
so in the issue of Star Wars, their fan fiction has generally been pretty left alone here and there.
And Star Trek.
It's been and Paramount.
They've allowed over
has
100
been
fan
promoting.
episodes. Yeah.
They've actually
Well,
been promoting it.
so there's this new the Star Trek Renegades.
I've been
season
watching
3.
those.
I helped donate to
Yeah.
the third one,
Yeah.
Renegades. The actor who plays Chekhov, Walter Koenig, thank you.
Yeah.
Also Bester in Babylon 5, which we used
Yes.
great as Bester. So this
He
is
was
his
very
last. This last Renegade will be his farewell as Chekhov. He's getting up there in age and everything now too. And it's nice to see him without the toupee and stuff. He's actually allowing himself to be old and these things. But he's he's an admiral and all that. Part of it is they have an agreement with Paramount that when they release it, it has to be lower resolution,
And that it has to be
not for
free.
profit. It has to be, but they allow to do Kickstarters. That surprised me. Right? It's one thing to like do it yourself,
right.
take it out of your own pocket and run it. It's another thing to accept money through a Kickstarter.
To pay the actors, but then
Right,
show that
but
you're not-
Enterprises, I'm just saying that
Yeah.
the moment money is involved, it gets really risky. But Paramount has actually, at first they were fighting it in the late 90s.
and
And
Paramount
then they
has
eventually
decided
said, okay,
to-
if you do it
yeah.
low
Well,
res,
it only
you
makes
do these
sense,
things,
right? Because what would happen?
they've allowed it. And that's awesome.
It keeps the
Keeps
demand
franchise going.
for Star Trek going.
Yeah, if you think
With
of it
fresh
as,
material.
if you think of
And
it
then you
as
want more
third-party
something more
advertising.
professional. Yeah. So, I'm all for that viral marketing thing,
So if
but very
years
few companies
if
are open to
years
that.
3 and 4 are done in fan fiction, and then if 4 is done completely in fan fiction, and then year 5 is done by Paramount, that would be okay.
Well, let's bring it back.
So, yeah, anyway, so, okay, fans often get upset at the commercial interests which have developed around a story they feel is sacrosanct. Had Tolkien foreseen the revenues his characters and plots would produce or could produce, the Tolkien family is holding on to non-Lord of the Rings rights, he might perhaps have approached matters differently. Perhaps he wouldn't have sold the film rights at all, one must wonder. Our society today consumes all manner of things, including intellectual and emotional stimulation. Hollywood plays only a small part in providing the stimuli we seek to make our lives more exciting and interesting. Tolkien played only a small part in that process himself. But now, with the advent of the internet, PCs and many home computers throughout the industrial first world, and the high production facilities which enable filmmakers to distribute their productions worldwide in a matter of weeks, the world is threatened with an almost instant glut of stimulation on any one topic that becomes hot. And today, Tolkien is hot, very hot. Peter Jackson, the New Zealand filmmaker, can't bring his 3-movie project based on Lord of the Rings out fast enough. Yes, Zayas is still behind the deal, controlling the rights, but now the contracts have been signed, the money has been paid out, and the project is going, although there was a lot of lawsuits after the fact. Zayas' company will doubtless sell more licenses, but a new phase of commercialization is due to begin within another year. Probably, marketing executives and agents are discussing proposals and ideas around the world as you read this column. There will not only be the official Tolkien-related merchandising. There will be the knockoff and competitor merchandise. How can there not be? What toy company, having missed out on a chance to issue its own Frodo doll, won't be looking at the possibility of making a halfling or snuggling line of action figures? By the way, I got some little furry stuffed animals right on top of the bookshelf there. You want to grab them? There's like a Frodo and an orc. They're little. Somebody gave them to me. So he's just snuggling, and I'm like, "Do you see him there?"
Maybe.
How many film companies aren't considering the idea of producing the Lord of the Rings-like movie to help satisfy the almost inevitable craving for more? Its audiences are bound to come out of theaters with. Yeah, so show that little Uruk-hai to the camera. There you go.
Oh, it's so kind.
That's so cheesy. Joe. Jackson's films will indeed ignite viewer demand for more and more and more. He's incorporating new technology, which probably will be outdated or passé by the time the films are released, in the production, and plans to create a visual spectacle that threatens to overwhelm audience passions about the story.
That hairstyle.
Anyone who has viewed Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, and Xena, Warrior Princess, which, by the way, Michael Martinez runs Zenite.org, which was all about the whole Xena Hercules thing.
Oh, okay.
Knows what lush and pristine landscapes New Zealand can provide. Jackson's films are not likely to bring the audience to the world of Middle-earth, but it will almost be an IMAX-like experience the first time people step into the theater. That's true. It was pretty spectacular.
And what a great deal.
I thought that Peter Jackson did an okay job. He messed up on some of the details, but the gist of it was there.
I think he started on the right track, but he got more and more off track.
When we got to the second movie, I walked out of the theater and there were two guys behind me complaining about the length, and they were confused about the plot.
Inevitably, fandom is headed for a new round of Tolkien wars. I was about to talk about this, but luckily Michael covers it. For years, purists have been chiding gamers for using Iron Crown Enterprises game materials as a basis for discussing Tolkien's world. Iron Crown Enterprises advises their customers to refer to all the Tolkien books as the final authorities on any Middle-earth topic. Here we come down to the canon battle. Fans of David Day and Ruth Noel reel in shock when they mention their fondness for these authors' unauthorized books, only to find themselves silenced by the overwhelming criticism and rebuke that purists hold in reserve for any mention of the forbidden names. It is difficult to distinguish between hardcore fans and casual fans when it comes to Tolkien. The Lord of the Rings has been published in more than 30 languages and has sold more than 80 million copies worldwide since 1999. The Lord of the Rings has been published. If I'm walking down the street and I start chanting, Xena, Xena, people may still look at me like I'm weird. But if I yell out, are there any hobbits in the crowd? Many people will know precisely what I'm referring to. Xenites think Xena is big. Tolkien is bigger. Science fiction and fantasy fans think Lucas stole the thunder with Star Wars, but Tolkien owns the thunder and it's still in his pocket. Everyone pays homage to Tolkien in some way. J. Michael Straczynski with Babylon 5. I was sitting in a fast food restaurant's children's area one day and heard a man call his daughter over to him. Arwen! He couldn't help but notice my surprised look. So I asked if she was named for the character in the book. Sort of, he told me. My wife is Welsh, and Arwen is a Welsh name, so she was willing to accept the name. It's a small Middle-earth after all. When people try to strike up a conversation with me about fantasy and science fiction, and they have no real interest in the genres, I often hear some comment about dragons and elves. Now, Tolkien didn't invent them, but he seems to be the first author since the poet who composed Beowulf to have something new to say about dragons. All modern dragons seem to owe something to the Chinese culture, Beowulf, and Tolkien.
Oh, the movies that aren't Tolkien, they're mindless monsters that you have to defeat like a rabid wolf.
Right.
A giraffe wolf.
By the way, I'm skipping a number of pages for brevity here. If you want, Visualizing Middle-earth by Michael Martinez, you can find online. Even Star Wars aficionados love to compare Lucas to Tolkien. Oh yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi is Gandalf, and Luke is Frodo. The Death Star, I suppose, is Smaug. Or maybe Barad-dûr. Both are brought down by relatively unknown heroes. It's impossible to know what will happen when the movies come out. that there may be a revival in Tolkien-like fiction, or Tolkien wannabe fiction, as some have called it. No one seems to be able to write like Tolkien. Television will probably join in the fray with the introduction of new fantasy series.
So,
There has been a
so have you
I'm
heard of the
surprised
new
that
Star Wars
hasn't
movie?
happened very much.
What?
Have you heard of the new Star Wars movie? Rogue One?
No, there's been, at least on cable, there's been a ton.
There has been?
Yeah, but they come and go. It's because fantasy generally, the standards are really low on production quality. You know, you
Like
have
the
exceptions like Game of
Beowulf
Thrones and
television
stuff.
series. The recent
Yeah. There's been a lot of cable series left and right, but they all end up lasting maybe one season.
Our time setting is medieval, so they haven't discovered grass yet.
Right. And I almost finished watching Shannara, which is on MTV. It's David Eddings' Shannara series. It's way too modern. It's just way too anachronistic. Or not David Eddings. Sorry, Terry Brooks. David
Actually,
Eddings is the Bavaria.
actually, Terry Brooks was making that as a post-apocalyptic.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's how he wrote the books.
But it was still a knockoff.
They jump in. And this series starts with the Elfstones of Shannara.
Right. It's the most recent novel.
Which is better? Elfstones I thought was better than Sword. Anyway.
Really?
I like Sword better than Elfstone.
Maybe it's just because
Sword
the
is
first one.
such a copy.
It's been so. It is. I thought it was all a blatant ripoff.
Yeah, it's a ripoff.
Anyway, the problem I have with it is it's on MTV, and the actors seem like they came from MTV.
Oh, you know, you got to.
They're way too modern style of dialogue and mannerisms.
Hey, dude, like forsooth,
You know,
be gone.
but not surprisingly, John Rice Davies is in it. He's an elf. He's the head leader. He's the king of the elves.
Well, doesn't that make
He's
sense
not
though
elf.
from the post-apocalyptic source of the book that they would have a modern speech style?
It just doesn't. It just bothers me. And when they shoot shows like that, they end up becoming they date themselves too much. Others where they become a little more timeless and they're less anachronistic that way. I think they hold up better over time. If they become too much of that time period, then they lose their value.
Meaning our time period. You mean.
Right. So now if we jump to the future,
Using
you look back and go, oh wow, that's so 2016.
Yeah.
Like Wayne's World.
Yeah. Well, but then there's classics like that. Now there's a rumor that they're doing Bill and Ted 3.
What?
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be the original actors or looking a little old. Yeah, that was.
Maybe
I don't know
by
how
then.
true it is.
Maybe.
Okay. Will they be serious productions intended for general worldwide audience, a la Hercules and Xena? How can you take that seriously? Come on. That was all about tongue in cheek. I thought. I know people take it seriously. Or will they show up on Nickelodeon, the Disney Channel, and Fox Kids Network? Not so much. I can see Arwen pendants and bracelets, Galadriel rings, Aragorn cloaks, Frodo vials.
They have
All that has happened. Shopping bags, Sam's cooking gear, whole new generation of chefs.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Such that 30 years from now, fine restaurants around the world will offer herbs and stewed rabbit. Australia will finally have a new solution for its legendary rabbit problem, if they haven't permanently solved it already.
Yeah, that's
Will the Lord of the Rings movies walk off with any Academy Awards? How will Peter Jackson open his acceptance speech? I'd like to thank j.r.r. Tolkien, whom I believe is residing with the Luvatar, perhaps enjoying a replay of the music of the Ainur. End quote. Will Elijah Wood get Best Actor? Will Ian McKellen get Best Supporting Actor? Will the soundtrack go platinum overnight? Will Liv Tyler establish the standard for Elven maidens in filmdom for the next 50 years? Yeah,
Actually, Elijah Wood, he went directly from The Lord of the Rings to Sin City.
Yeah,
the
Sin City
serial
was psychotic. Yeah.
trying to get as
Psychotic
far away
creature,
from that
yeah.
stereotype
Yeah.
as he could.
When our children and grandchildren are rifling our attics and they come across our collections of Lord of the Rings CDs, so that's dated already. CDs, DVDs, all that, 'cause it's all online now.
Yes.
Aragorn and Arwen posters, Anduril replicas, files of Galadriel, which no longer glow in the dark because the chemicals have long since congealed in the useless water, and Ring of Power plates. Will they understand what inspired all the hoopla and commemoration? Will they see past the commercial value of antique movie artifacts and remember that Frodo gave his life for a whole world, the most of which he never had a chance to see? Will they recall the sad beauty of Galadriel singing farewell to Frodo and his companions, hoping he'll find healing at the end of his journey? Will they understand that Gandalf was more than just a crotchety old guy, that he made a career out of fighting for hopeless causes in the hope of bringing about the final victory? I think that as long as the publishers continue to see opportunity in Tolkien, generation after generation will come to know and love the world of Middle-earth much as we do. The books won't just always be there. They'll keep coming and coming and coming. The books won't just always be
interesting
there. They'll
note.
keep coming and coming.
Most people, when you ask them who was Gandalf, will say, well, he was a human wizard. You know,
Yeah,
they're not realizing
our thing, yeah.
they're not realizing he's more like an angel pretending
Yeah,
to be a
saint or
human.
something, or yeah, some semi-demigod. There appears to be no let-up in the demand for Hobbit stuff. The Lord of the Rings has never gone out of print since it was first published, and that's remarkable. And it doesn't seem likely to for ages to come. Remember the music, capital M. As we first heard it in our own imaginations, page by page, will be with us always. Oh, that's the Obi-Wan Kenobi then. So that's some excerpts from Michael Martinez visualizing Middle-earth. You can see he does some nice humor to it as one of his many, many, many essays. Do you recall what letters we were at?
I can tell you.
I've completely forgotten.
We are on 114 from a letter to Hugh Brogan, 7th of April, 1948. Brogan, then a schoolboy, had written Tolkien praising The Hobbit and asking for more information about the world it described. I am glad you enjoyed The Hobbit. I have, in fact, been engaged for 10 years on writing another longer work about the same world and period of history, in which, at any rate, all can be learned about the necromancer and the mines of Moria. Only the difficulty of writing the last chapters and the shortage of paper have so far prevented its printing. I hope at least to finish it this year, and will certainly let you have advance information. I wrote long ago and passed the proofs a year ago.
Another short work.
Another short work on a rather different period, Farmer Giles of Ham.
Which we finished reading just a few months ago.
That's right. I don't know what, beyond curiosity about the older world.
So I don't know what beyond paper is holding it up.
I'm trying to go back and forth. Here we go.
But it should appear this autumn or winter.
Right. But it will not satisfy any ordinary works of reference.
Any curiosity about.
Hold on. I know what I need to do. Take
What's
off my
going
line. Then I can tilt it and read. Thank you. That's better. But it will not, let's see, but it will not satisfy any curiosity about the older world. I am afraid you would not find any information about that in ordinary works of reference, since I possess all the documents and publishers won't publish them. What you really require is the Silmarillion, which is virtually a history of the Eldaliae, or elves by a not very accurate translation, from their rise to the last alliance, and the first temporary overthrow of Sauron, the necromancer. That would bring you nearly down to the period of The Hobbit. Also desirable would be some maps, chronological tables, and some elementary information about the Eldarin or Elvish languages. I have got all those things, of course, and they are known in a small circle which includes my sons, all once at the Dragon School. Footnote. If I can find some time and way of reproducing them, or part of them, say in typescript, and you remain interested in this little explored region of prehistory, I will let you have some of the documents.
The footnote is Hugh Brogan had been a pupil at the school to whom this letter was responding to.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so Silmarillion, this is 1948.
You know,
and he was still trying, he's still trying to get them to bundle Silmarillion, and they don't do it.
Oh, I've spent 2 years on the book I'm writing. It's a little bit reassuring to hear that it took him.
Well, it's not about the writing; it's that they wouldn't let him. They wouldn't publish it. He kept wanting. He said, "You can't do the Lord of the Rings without the Silmarillion because you won't have context." And they looked through it and went, "No, this is completely different. This is like Greek literature. This is not what readers want for more hobbits. We're not going to publish it." And he tried to find publishers to publish it, and they wouldn't do it. And he said, "Well, can I at least put appendices to reference these things that I'm referencing?" And so that's when he had to work in that. But
so you're trying to destroy that one thing of comfort I was trying to do.
Well, no,
I think it's both, guys. Yeah, it's
I mean, because remember, it took him 13 years or whatever to write Lord of the Rings, and rewrote.
Yeah.
But the main thing here was that he was trying to get them to publish it, and nobody would do it. As he
So
saw
it did take him a
until
long
he
time.
died.
It did take a long time to write the story.
Yeah.
But
13
then
years
once
ago.
it was finished, then as Hawk was saying,
Well, no, even before he finished, he was pitching the Silmarillion, and they
Yes.
wouldn't accept it.
yes, but there's two different elements.
Yeah, they're both
true.
both factors. So
Unfortunately, what that meant for the fans is that for both reasons, poor schoolboy was probably in his late 20s by the time he was able to finish reading it, or maybe mid.
no, it was 1948. He's probably in his 50s by the time Silmarillion was published.
Oh, I was referring to the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, right, yeah, right, yeah.
Which at that point still was to wait until the mid 50s.
Right, yeah. But I mean, but he's talking
And
about
then think
some
about
Silmarillion stuff.
Think how old he
Right, as I
was.
say, he's probably in his 50s or 60s by the time Silmarillion.
Yes.
That's a long wait.
Well, let's see. 1970s, I think, is when the Silmarillion was.
73,
Yeah.
4, 5, right around
So
there, yeah.
something
Shortly
like
after his death.
30 years later.
By the time I got interested, it was all published.
Let's see.
Okay, so let's see. Who would like to read the next letter?
115 to Catherine Ferrer. Mrs. Ferrer had apparently expressed a desire to read the Silmarillion and related manuscripts. 15 June, year not given, possibly 1948. Merchant College, Oxford. Dear Mrs.
Oh,
Ferrer.
before you do that,
Yes.
Jeremiah has commented, so
Okay.
before we go into another letter, I want to make sure we get his
Okay.
responses.
Go ahead.
Forgot to tell you guys, you inspired me to read Farmer Giles to my 7-year-old daughter. Woohoo!
Great. What did she think of it?
She loved it. As though he heard you. She loved it. We immediately followed up with Smith of Wootton Major, which she'd actually already heard. We're now reading something else entirely. But she did ask me if we could go back through the Jemima Caitlin illustrated edition of The Hobbit next. Couldn't be prouder. There's a hope for the next generation. Ultimately, I can't argue with the publisher's decision. It's a shame that Tolkien had to shelve the Silmarillion, but Lord of the Rings was so much more accessible. If people felt compelled to begin with the context of the Silmarillion, because it was included along with Lord of the Rings, I don't know, Tolkien probably wouldn't be enjoying the popularity, so that's probably true. Most people that cannot get through the Silmarillion. So yeah, well that's awesome. So you should read Bliss.
You should read Mr.
You should read
Bliss.
Mr. Bliss next. That's a
You-
wonderful story.
You should also read Roverandom.
Oh, Roverandom. Oh yeah.
Yes.
I love Roverandom. And I love the whole story behind why Roverandom was created to make up for him losing his little pewter dog. That's such a lovely. Oh, that's Father Christmas. Here it is. So, Roverandom. That is such a great little story. And then the letters from Father Christmas, I love these. They're just little quick stories he did for each Christmas. And this version's great because it's actually like it's a recreation of the letter and everything. That Tolkien did all the artwork and such. Very neat. So yeah, these are some other great stories. And then of course from the Tolkien Reader, Tom Bombadil's a lot of fun. Hey, old Tom Bombadil, where do you think you're going?
All of the poems in that actually are quite nice.
Yes.
He's got some fun little ones like
Yeah.
Cow and the
Yes.
Jumped Over the Moon.
Yes, which the Tolkien Ensemble musical group has created an audio version. They've done
Really?
musically of that song and many others.
Fun.
So and they do a great, and that's with Christopher Lee in some of those pieces too.
And at this point, we break out into Orc and Dwarf, right?
Dwarf and orc, battle not worth telling, spear or cork, with which should you be assailing? Actually, a photo I have from Journey Quest, there were 2 female dwarves, bearded and everything in Journey Quest there. One's the tavern owner, but the actresses of the female orc and the female dwarf were kind of curled up on the sofa in the green room resting, and luckily I had access to them hang out there. So I got a photo of the 2 of them just kind of curled up next to each other, dwarf and orc, and they did a little quote, and that's Glass Hammer who did that from their Middle Earth album. Fun little piece, so yeah. MiddleEarthRadio.com has all of that information. And Professor Chris Seaman has the Tolkien music list. I think it's Tolkien-music.org.com. But just look for the Tolkien music list. He lists every music that he can find, musical piece that has Tolkien reference or inspiration or whatever. It's a really comprehensive one. When I was populating Middle Earth Radio's playlist and everything, I was just using his databases. He's been adding that for decades now. It's a really comprehensive list. Okay, sorry. So, oh wait, letters from Father Chris. Okay, let's see. Bliss is on the list. We've already read Rover Random previously, but it's been a while. Okay, cool. Letters from Father Christmas is great, and at moments heartbreaking when you hear Tolkien write to his own kids about the fact that Father Christmas might not have as much to put in their stockings this year, and you realize it's because of the war going on. Yeah. The context is quite powerful. Okay, so sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Yes. I am sorry that I have been so long in replying and so may have seemed ungrateful when I was really very touched by your kind letter and also excited. For though I have, in the cracks of time, labored at these things since about 1914, I have never found anyone but CSL and my Christopher who wanted to read them, and no one will publish them. I have spent what time I could since you wrote in collecting out of the unfinished mass such things as are more or less finished and readable, I mean legible. You may find the compendious history or Silmarillion tolerable, though it is only really half revised. The long tales out of which it is drawn by Pengolod, footnote, are either incomplete or not up to date. The Fall of Gondolin, the Lay of Beren and Luthien, and the Children of Húrin, which has now
which
been
has
released.
been,
I am distressed for myself to be unable to find the Rings of Power, which, with the fall of Numenor, is the link between the Silmarillion and the Hobbit world. But its essentials are included in Chapter 2 of The Lord of the Rings. The book would, of course, be easier to write if the Silmarillion were published first. I will bring you round some unique manuscripts sometime today. Thank you for your remembrance and prayer. In prayer, yours sincerely, Ronald Tolkien.
Wouldn't that be great to get a letter from him saying,
Oh yeah.
I'll bring you around some unique manuscripts sometime today. Okay, forget the shopping, I'm staying home.
At that time period, wasn't he pretty much just a stuffy old professor?
Also, wouldn't one of the Lost Tales be a good one? The one with the father and the son and the Numenorian ship time travel one. That would probably be another good one from.
We really should. And there's always the Notion Club papers, but I think we kind of.
No, I mean, I'm talking about for reading to
yeah.
his daughter. Because that one was kind of more accessible than some of the others.
Yeah, he didn't finish it, but it's
still a neat story.
It is.
In time travel aspect and such.
And when she's older, of course, then Jeremiah,
Yeah.
the science fiction trilogy that Lewis wrote. Although the Narnia Chronicles are easier to start first.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's great for him to mention some of these individual stories, which were really the keystones or the stepping stones to the Silmarillion.
Right.
And so.
Well, I grew up on the Narnia Chronicles.
Yeah. Richard, did you want to read the next letter?
No.
Okay.
It is challenged by choice. You're not required to if you don't want to.
116. A letter from Alan. A letter to Alan in Unwin. The artist Melian Cosman has been chosen to illustrate Farmer Giles a Ham, and the publishers had asked Tolkien for his opinion of some of the specimen drawing, which Miss Cosman had only provided after many delays. I am not, for myself, much interested in the fashionableness of these drawings or their resemblance to Topolsky or Ardizazon. I find their lack of resemblance to their text more marked. This is a definitely located story, one of its virtues, if it has any. Oxfordshire and Bucks with a brief excursion into Wales. The places in it are largely named or fairly plainly indicated. There is no attempt by the illustrator to represent any of this. The incident of the dog and the dragon occurs near Rollright, by the way, though that is not plainly stated, at least as clearly takes place in Oxfordshire.
Mhm.
The giant is passable, though the artist is a poor drawer of trees. The dragon is absurd, ridiculously coy, and quite incapable of performing any of the tasks laid on him by the author. I cannot help wondering why he should be so fatuously,
Fatuously, yes.
looking over his right shoulder southeast when an obvious, if sketchy dog is going off northwest. In defiance of the fact that the dog happily did not come on the head end first, but turned his own tail as soon as he came to the dragons. The farmer, a large blustier, bigger than his fellows, is made to look like little Jode at the end of a third degree by railway officials. What? He would hardly have used as a cowherd the shambling hut at which the miller and the parson are knocking. It was a prosperous yeoman or Franklin. I understand what yeoman is. Franklin I associate with Benjamin, but that's probably not right.
Well, it is, but Franklin was also an occupation. But I can't remember what they did.
Stuff.
I gather you do not share my sentiments. Well, if you think that the illustrations of this sort, wholly out of keeping with the style or manner of the text, will do, or will, for reasons of contemporary taste, be an advantage, I am so far in your hands. But if you are ever going to induce Miss C to impart such finish as will not exhaust her and make her too unhappy, in fact, to finish the job, when do you expect to get this book out?
So, I looked up the artist he referenced at the beginning. Topolsky is Felix, F-E-L-I-K-S, Topolsky. 1907 to 1989, a Polish expressionist painter and draftsman working primarily in the United Kingdom. And his stuff is that kind of 60s impressionistic, kind of funky coloring looking at the stuff I'm seeing there in Wikipedia. Piccadilly Circus, 1973, Tate Gallery is actually pretty famous. So I could see if it was in that style why he would be disturbed by it. The other fellow are these Artisani. His style is naturalistic but subdued, featuring gentle lines and delicate watercolors, but with great attention to particular details. He was elected to the British Royal Academy in 1970. He did a lot of kids' books.
Yeah, I have one of them actually.
He did.
Well, Miss Cosman.
So he's from 1900 1979.
Woman.
What's that? I know, but he was comparing her artwork to these two artists and saying he didn't care for it. Artisone won the medal. So he did the illustration. So he's in the U.S. Library of Congress in the Mediterranean Anthology. Oh, come on. Okay, best known work is the Tim series, featuring the maritime adventures of his eponymous young hero, which he both wrote and illustrated. Little Tim and the Brave Sea Captain by Oxford University Press. World War II, he was a full-time official war artist, and it shows like graves and stuff on the road to Tripoli, A Cup of Tea for the Burial Party, 1943. Normandy, June 1944, Naval Control Post to the beaches, etc. So yeah, it's I could see when he's making comparisons to those two, I could see why Tolkien wasn't really satisfied with what he was seeing. So that was just looking at those.
I've had my own issues with dealing with artists and trying to
It's always a challenge. It's always a challenge.
What I'm talking about.
So Brian, I was telling you about the first Mercon adventure, Escape from Numenor, Usle Numenorella. And this artist I think she's in Spain, was kind enough to make, what happened is I put out the word, I got a couple of different artist submissions from a couple of people for the artwork for the module, and also to go to Other Minds Magazine and such, because that was also when Other Minds Magazine started to come out a little later. And I wanted the scene of the Armada sailing off to the west with the great eagles of Manwë in the sky, with lightning coming down, and the temple and Sauron defiant against the gods, right, against the Ainur. And so two different artists actually followed through and submitted something, right? Most artists don't follow through, unfortunately. They may be inspired, but they don't follow through. Two actually followed through with completed works. And I'll have to include them on the page. They are drastically different in style. And I ended up just using both because I was kind enough them to do it. And this is a free work, so what the heck. And so I put one on the front of the cover and one on the back cover. The one from Spain who actually did it with Sauron as clear thing in his fair form, because he's still in his fair form.
Avatar.
I don't like her style of humans. They always look like, or elves, whatever. They all look really elongated and overly thin and whatever. But that's a stylistic thing. But the rest of it I like. She did a pretty good job with representing sort of the Eagles of Manwë, a little more literally than they're described, but that's okay. And did a nice job with it overall. And then the other one was really impressionistic, where they were just like the ships, everything was very triangular, and it was interesting.
That would have gone on the back page then on this.
Well, actually, I think I might have done that one more on the front because it was less busy.
Oh.
Right? Just from a marketing, and not for sale, but just the making it available. So
because you've got print on the cover as well, so
yeah, it was easier to.
Yeah.
Let's see. So where did I put it?
we'll just link it to that, and then we can put it on the notes,
Yeah.
and people can see it.
Yeah. So again, it is really hard when you have what's in your head,
So
short of truly professional artists,
Right.
to get them to express what you're thinking. It's quite challenging.
wasn't it Ted Nasmith or was it Alan Lee who did a very nice rendition of, not with Sauron in it,
Well, those are the two who've done most of the illustrations. in the
but
last
I'm
2
thinking of one
decades.
particular Tolkien calendar piece where it shows the fleet off to the west and then the Eagles of Manwë in the clouds. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh,
one.
really? Okay.
Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
seen that one.
We should put that on there too, maybe.
Yeah,
I think that'd be nice.
make notes to
Okay.
those effects, or it won't happen. Let's go back to the
Indeed.
video.
And let's see. So
Jeremiah says, Franklin, a landowner of free but not noble birth in the 14th and 15th centuries in England. Thank you for that, Jeremiah. You're always keeping us on track. Really appreciate that.
So not beholden to a
Yeoman or Franklin.
lord.
Yeah.
Yes.
Freeman, basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So speaking of being on
Oh,
time,
like
close to
Scottish?
Yeah, we're almost there. So letter 117.
I think. Do we want to read that till next time?
It's a short one.
Is it?
We got 10 minutes.
Do you want to go and read that since the rest of the
Sure.
stuff?
From a letter to Hugh Brogan of 31st October 1948. I managed to go into, quote, retreat, unquote, in the summer, and am happy to announce that I succeeded at last in bringing The Lord of the Rings to a successful conclusion. Also, it has been read and approved by Rainer Unwin, who, the original reader of The Hobbit, has had time to grow up while the sequel has been made, and is now here at Trinity. I think there is a chance of it being published, though it will be a massive book far too large to make any money for the publisher, let alone die author. D-I-E author.
I think there's an OCR mistake. What is it in the book?
Yeah, let alone the author.
I'm trying to find it.
It must run to 1,200 pages. However, length is no obstacle to those who like that kind of thing. If only term had not caught me up on the hop again. I should have revised the whole. It is astonishingly difficult to avoid mistakes and changes of name and all kinds of inconsistencies of detail in a long work, as critics forget, who have not tried to make one and sent it to the typist. They're a little poke at the critics in advance. I hope to do so soon, and can only say that as soon as I have a spare copy, you shall have the loan of one, plus a good deal of explanatory matter. Alphabets, history, calendars, and genealogies reserved for the real fans. I hope this may be possible soon, so that you can have it during the Christmas holidays, but I cannot promise. This university business of earning one's living by teaching, delivering philological lectures, and daily attendance at boards and other talk meetings interferes sadly with serious work.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. Hear what I have to say.
Other talk meetings. That would be a.
And he's running this to the schoolboy again.
Yeah,
I-
his pupil.
It's
That's
quite
awesome.
amazing how seriously
Yeah,
he took
one
this young
lucky
man.
Brogan is lucky whether he knows it or not.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very awesome.
And so was it around 1,200 pages? Does that sound about right for the 3 books?
Sure.
Well, I mean, I have those full versions, so easy enough to.
I had 1,200 pages of
The preceding,
typescript.
the preceding.
Oh, yeah,
sentence
TypeScript, yeah.
Was, I think there's a chance of it being published, though it will be a massive book, far too.
I mean, yeah, even in this version, it's with the index and everything, it's nearly 1,200 pages, and it's
Yeah.
pretty small font
Let alone the opera.
in this version,
Yeah.
the memorial or 50th anniversary edition.
Yeah, and
How many pages?
It's close to 1,200 with the index and everything, but this is a small print in this version,
Sure.
the 50th anniversary. So
I would love to know where he went on retreat to finish.
Somewhere
his
in
book.
England.
some hobbit hole somewhere.
Maybe he went
he
to
says retreat in quotes,
Yes.
so he might have just buried himself in his office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although somewhere we would be bothered.
I mean, not the school office, his home office.
True.
Yeah.
That's so buried with stuff.
Yeah.
Here's let's see, we get this full screen.
That's true. He doesn't say it to or on retreat. He says it to go into retreat. So
Yeah,
it's-
at the treatment plant, we have a couple desks in locations in the bowels that we retreat to when we want to read a technical manual and not be bothered.
Do any of them have a red stapler?
What's that?
Do any of those mystery desks have a red stapler?
So this was one of the pictures.
Red stapler.
They stole my stapler.
I don't get it.
It's an office reference.
Oh, mine. Kenny gave me a shirt that just says mine with a red stapler.
Yeah.
I didn't really get it either. Okay, so that was one of the pieces,
Not-
right?
not-
Well, it's this one character who doesn't understand what's going on around him, and he has this red stapler that everybody cuts. And
Thou shalt not covet.
he grabs the stapler and starts wandering around the offices.
Someone stole my stapler. Someone stole my stapler.
It was a sitcom about office politics.
Someone stole my stapler.
And then the other one. So that was the one I put on the back.
Yeah, that one is kind of impressionistic.
Right.
Bit
Well, this
water-
one's, no, that one
That
was
one's a bit
closer. This is the impression. This is the one that's really stylized.
Oh, yeah. That's psychedelic.
Big difference.
Oh, yes.
The other one at least was closer. This one is like really kind of surreal. And
Yeah, but I think that might be more in
That's
line
one I
with
put on the front.
Tolkien. I mean, I think that it's a little more sympathetic to Tolkien style as well.
Yeah.
But many thanks to both of them. I'm very grateful for it.
Did you guys think the first version of Silmarillion was a bit difficult to get through? 'Cause I didn't really have any problems when I was in high school.
It was sixth grade when I first tried to read it.
Yeah,
I struggled with it.
but you're special.
I think
I'm not sure how to take that.
it was in high school when I was.
But so both of those, I gave the exact same text of description of Sauron against, because there's a little tiny Sauron there and everything, and that other one. Very different, exact identical text of
Yes.
description. Very interesting. But that's from Escape from Numenor. It's about 55-page module. It's a quick, fast pace. It's the last 2 weeks of Numenor. And
Yes,
you have to
we talked about
flee
that.
it. So you are, so it's Ulse Numenorello, Escape from Numenor. This was for MertCon 1 in 2005. Professor Chris Seaman co-GM'd it with me and helped me enhance some of the factual information. There is the Woses, the Druidine, were saying the earth feels unsteady beneath our feet, and they were having visions and left Numenor as Ar-Pharazôn the Golden, after he captured Sauron, was manipulated and led more and more astray, and was starting to turn against the gods as he became afraid of his death. And Sauron was saying, "Oh, well, you just need to go there. They're cheating you from immortality," and poisoning him, and then slowly converting the Numenorians to Morgothism, basically. Slowly built temples and sacrifices and everything. But you had the rebels, so those loyal to Ar-Pharazôn the Golden were the King's Men, later the Black Numenorians. And then you had the rebels, who were the Edain, the faithful, who stayed faithful to the elves and to the Valar and such, and the whole purpose of the Land of Gift, which is Numenor. So I've written multiple modules on Numenor. This is when it comes to all the Tolkien stuff, this is the area I put the most effort into over the years, is the whole Numenorian mythology.
The faithful were a real minority, as I recall.
Right, they were a very small minority, and mostly they were Elendili. They were followers of Elendil and such, but there were others. And so many started to leave because of the persecution, because they get captured and sacrificed. Elendil was still too powerful a figure because of his lineage. And remember, Ar-Pharazôn only got the throne through forcing the woman who's supposed to have the throne into marriage, and then taking the scepter and crown from her forcefully. It was against her will and everything. He wouldn't have normally had the throne. And he was arguably the most powerful and most successful emperor of Numenor ever. And he captured Sauron. Sauron didn't put a fight. He just went, "Okay, you got me." Because when he saw his forces arrayed. Well, no, I think it was like, "Oh crap, okay, fine. I'll take this a different way." I don't think it was originally planned. The forces were overwhelming. Yeah, exactly. And it worked, sort of. Well, it backfired on him too. So anyway, over the years, it gets worse. They dang the prosecutor. They start going into hiding more and more. And so I pick up, and there's a little bit of timeline compression here, but basically you've gotten the word that you're on the far western side of the island. The Armada has already gone, and they're within days of setting foot on the shore, which those of us who know means when that happens, Numenor gets sucked into the ocean and destroyed. So it basically started about 10 days to 14 days, depending on how long this adventure will run, out from that happening. And you've got to get from that end of Numenor to the other end, to Elendil ships waiting in the harbor off the capital.
Weren't there like 3 ships?
No, there were, I think there were originally like 13 or more, but I think only 7 survived because, the 7 stars or whatever. There's all these biblical numbers and such. But no, there were more ships, that some were overcome, if I remember correctly. Anyway, it's been a while since research, but you needed to get to Elendil ships. Well, the group can do it any way they want. They can try to get some coastal ships, or they can try to go across land. Either way, it's going to be really hard to get all the way across Numenor in time, within just 10 days or so. And of course, you're being hunted by Sauron's priests and priestesses to put you on the fires, to sacrifice you. So you have to dodge that, and you have to avoid the King's Men, who are in the employ of Ar-Pharazôn, but are basically following Sauron's orders, who's saying, "Find any rebels, capture them, I need to sacrifice them, etc. They're going to be nothing but trouble. They're terrorists," right? That's basically what's being spread around, is the nine of the terrorists.
I was going to say it kind of reminds me of today's political climate.
So you have to, this is 2005, but so you have to, it's a very fast-paced adventure that was written for a convention setting, but it can be played otherwise. And it started with Chris Seaman played the one remaining Woes who stuck around because he knew he needed to inform these people. Because Woses were known to have visions and be prescience and such. And so he used to say, "Hey, you only have 10 days left. It's time to go. No more arguing. No more hoping that he'll turn around. There's no more hope for who you got to get out of here." And so it's a really fast-paced adventure of trying to get from one end of the island to the other. Without getting captured. And then along the way, you might free a village of people who are about to be sacrificed on the fires and things like that. So anyway, so that's what that was. And then I did, the second one was under Umbar, which is the city of the Black Numenorians. And then the third one, WordCon 3, was a 7-parter. It was the Numenorians at different stages during earlier years when they were the good guys and they were the men of gift, and they were coming to primitive Middle Earth and raising the standard and driving away the shadow and driving away the orcs and driving away the Lords of Sauron and helping bring technology to the primitive people of Middle Earth and such. And so that was like a 7-parter. Like there'd be like a year gap between those. All of those are on in Other Minds magazine and on TolkienMoot.org. So I think that's it. And that took up our time, 3 o'clock. Any other statements you want to make? We'll continue with letters 118 for the next one. And do we have any? Now the theme for Tolkien Moot, because Tolkien Moot's just a few months away now, was to be undead, assuming they get time to write all that. Otherwise, Brian asked that maybe I rehash some of these old ones that haven't been run in 10 years.
You go to a typical fantasy MMO or video game, and the big horde of grunt level are either orcs or undead. I mean, Skyrim, you're wading through the undead.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot more.
I'm just wondering where that comes from, because Tolkien world wasn't about versus
Paths of Eric, the Paths of the Dead, Eric.
Right, but that was kind of
the lands of Eric were surrounded with undead all over. The dead walked all the time in Eric.
Well, in Minecraft,
because of their curse.
They seem less corporeal.
No, they were a mixture. There were ghosts. There were zombies. The dying cultists, because they broke their word and weren't there at the battle.
Yeah, they were not allowed to die in peace.
Exactly.
They did not go to the halls of Mandos.
Right.
But it just seems like it's not so much the pop kind of.
Yeah.
The pop culture idea, the fantasy setting.
Right, and I won't do it where there's thousands of them or something like that. Mine is more about varied and powerful.
Right.
So, and
yes.
More Cthulhu-esque as well.
More rapish.
Well, there's a whole variety.
Sure.
And vampires are undead as well. So, and Tolkien had vampires. So, all of that I can play with. So, see you later, Jeremiah. Thank you so much for joining us. Everybody else, sorry this was a little bit more of an ADHD session, but when we don't have a theme, that sometimes happens. But I hope you guys found it interesting. We covered a lot of material, a lot of different areas. Hope you learned something, and we really appreciate Artemir and Jeremiah and Richard and Chris and Brian and everybody else who contributes. Really appreciate your participation. And
it was good to have Artemir back.
Yes, it was. We really missed him in the conversation, so we're grateful for that. So next month will be a normal second Saturday, right? There's no reason for us to bump that. It's May 14th is what it would be. Does anybody have any problem with that? Does that work for you? I don't know there are any problems either. Brian, how's your May 14th look?
That should be okay.
Okay. So May 14th, 1 p.m. Pacific time to 3 p.m. Pacific time, our normal second Saturday of the month, we will have our next Tolkien Society gathering. And wherever you may be well. Namaste.
Namaste.
Maria.